All right, everybody, we have a new story that's breaking here that I want to talk and I want to get deep into. And it has to do with Netflix and Google and Comcast. Let's get into it right here. As Netflix explores ad partnerships, Google, Comcast, and Magnite could be the top contenders. Now, before we get into this article for a little bit, let's discuss and let's talk about this for a second. Netflix is in a pickle, and the reason they're in a pickle is because they realized that. Well, they realized I was right, okay? They realized they don't have any content. No, I'm just kidding. Look, Netflix doesn't have the best content in the world, and consumers are starting to recognize that they don't have the best content. If you look at their chart right here, it was at $700.99 back in November 2021, and it fell down all the way to $162. It's at $187 today. Now, outside of their stock falling is as a result not only of the macroeconomy, not only of them pulling out of Russia, but consumers realizing there really isn't much to subscribe here for. I mean, I think this, and the market's not rewarding subscription businesses right now because the market's looking at these businesses like, hey, we're only going to give you a premium. We're only going to give you a tech-based forward PE multiple if we think you guys are actually innovating and your technology is actually advanced and you actually have this like solution to a problem that is monumental and that exists and that deserves to be rewarded with a high premium. Now, the macroeconomy has gone to crap, and we already know the macroeconomy has gone to crap in 2022. But outside of the macroeconomy, I think a lot of shareholders have just started to recognize, or like the market has started to recognize that Netflix is a media company. It's not a technology company. And I've been saying this for a long time. It's why I never invested in Netflix. I just never understood what the tech was. Like, you cannot tell me they have some phenomenal recommendation algorithm because everyone I know says it takes them hours to find something to watch on Netflix. Number two, they don't have the user-generated content at scale, like something like a YouTube or TikTok or Facebook, etc., like a true social content technology company, to be able to then algorithmically curate that content to drive massive amounts of attention and user engagement, etc., etc. This is the stuff that technology companies do that deserve the high forward PE multiples. Netflix is a media company. They buy assets, they might make assets, they may license assets, and they put it in front of you. And if you pay them $16 a month, you can then watch those things. Well, most people are not paying that much money anymore because there's just not enough meaningful content along with the competition that is raising up for them to justify buying on Netflix. That's why they are going into ads. So Netflix is on the hunt for a partner to launch its ad-supported business. Ted Sarandos, co-CEO, has confirmed they were always against ads. Now they're not against ads because when a recession's coming, you got to do whatever you can do. Netflix has been speaking to multiple ad companies to help the company ease into advertising sphere. We want a pretty easy entry into the market, which again, we will build on and iterate. He said, what we do at first will not be representative of what the product will be ultimately. I want our product to be better than TV. So they've been against advertising for so long because they always hated the concept of advertising in general and the thing, how the experience that it messes up when a user is actually engaging with the content. So they want the product to be better than traditional television, and how traditional television ads honestly kind of suck. After a disappointing first quarter earnings report, Netflix announced in May it was exploring new ways to add lower cost ad-based subscriptions to its business model. But what exactly would Netflix be looking for in an advertising partner? Evercore ISI analysts outlined 4 qualities that could help the streaming company hit the ground running. An ad sales team, that's important. Who's going to sell the ads for you? Who's actually going to get people to buy the ads on your product? And there's not going to be a hard way to find demand. I mean, there's probably a bunch of advertisers that want to advertise against Stranger Things, but you still got to find those people. A platform that can help with ad auctions, so like the actual bidding technology around the advertisements, which is a little bit, it might be social media-esque, but it might be also traditional media-based, like Comcast has like actual people that like bid on the ad versus like an algorithm, so it's a little bit more different from there. And then effective targeting and frequency features, ad serving capabilities that enables the delivery of ads, and all of these things that are incredibly important long term. Okay, now one thing I wanted to talk about before we get deeper into the article is, what does Google or Comcast or any of the other companies have something to gain from working with Netflix? If you think about this, if Netflix is introducing this advertising tier to their business because they realize that people don't care that much about the content to pay for it, well, they have to have meaningful advertising technology. Google and Comcast is a media company that has probably the most sophisticated advertising technology in the television space, because they've just been doing it for so long and they know how to do it. And then you've got Google with YouTube, and obviously Google is like 95% of the revenue is advertising technology and the revenue they make from that. So what do they have to gain from working with Netflix? I think there's a couple of points of analysis here. Number one, you could say that they make the advertising ecosystem bigger. Like in general, if more companies are spending on ads in the macro level on these types of mediums, which aren't like traditional television, Netflix is not really traditional television. In fact, they want to be better than traditional television. Then that overall expands the TAM of advertising, which is good for companies like Google and Facebook, because the more advertisers that there are spending money, the more potential there is for that advertising money to be going into some of these platforms. So like that's a big variable there. Number two is this argument about if there is some type of competitive advantage that like Google gets from selling Netflix this technology, for example. So for example, this could be like a consulting fee in which Netflix kind of pays Google for this technology, for the setup of this technology. Maybe it's in the couple hundreds of millions for a lifetime long contract. I know I'm just spitballing random stuff here, but maybe that's the benefit that Google has in terms of winning this bid, because that's just more revenue going to Google's bottom line, even if it's a consulting contract to help Netflix with their advertising technology. Or the more extreme version of this, which I don't think would happen, but Google takes a percentage of every ad they get into the Netflix system because they're the ones bringing the advertisers, or they're bringing the technology to facilitate the infrastructure for the advertisers. I don't know what that would look like, but that's a really interesting thing to think about, because otherwise, why Google would not do this out of the good of their heart? They are a ruthless company at the end of the day, just like many companies are ruthless, and they probably just don't want to help other people. With NBC Universal Free Will, Netflix could potentially fulfill a partnership requirements from ad sales to decisioning and execution to ad serving. And with Google as a partner, Netflix could break up the roles by having Google serve ads and NBC Universal Free Will to do the rest. And that's kind of what I'm getting at here. If Google is serving the ads, meaning, Samsung wants to advertise on Stranger Things on Netflix, Google is the intermediary facilitating that transaction, which requires a lot of in-depth technology, to be honest, to be able to get that thing to actually happen, but it's being displayed on Netflix. So like maybe NBC Universal is doing the ad sales, so you have the team that's calling up Samsung that says, hey, you should advertise against Stranger Things, here's all the metrics, here's why it would be beneficial for an ROI on your business, and then you have Google actually being the intermediary executing the advertisements. That's obviously a big deal if those companies are able to land those deals and contracts, and Netflix seems to not want to do it by themselves. There's also been speculation that Netflix could purchase streaming platform Roku. I did a video on this. This is probably never going to happen, given that the company already has an established ad sale team, platform, and business. This is highly unlikely, yes, because an acquisition can come with some challenges for Netflix, you think, including a low-margin hardware business, conflicts with other operating systems and content providers, and potentially regulatory scrutiny. The conflicts with operating systems is big. Like Roku is supposed to be a neutral playing ground for anyone to access content. If Netflix owned Roku, obviously that's not neutral anymore. Conflicts with Netflix's foray into ad-supported streaming, however, could be net positive for Roku, as it could accelerate the shift of ad dollars into streaming, which is big. More ad dollars going into streaming, the better it is for the industry in general. In June, Needham analysts outlined how Roku could benefit from Netflix's ad-based plan. She believes Netflix could strike a deal to share advertising revenue with Roku if it wants its ad option to be shown on the platform. Roku, in turn, could have leverage over its cut of the ad revenue. And I think that is also incredibly important. If Google gets a big cut out of the ad revenue for facilitating the transaction or these types of consulting fees, like this is just another stream of income. And think about Netflix's ad tier sales if it gets big. Meaning, I don't know. We're talking about like what if Netflix finds the next Squid Game and that gets advertised against? There's a decent amount of money to be made there, right? Just more even probably from getting premium subscribers to sign up to some extent, because more people can access it because there's not a paywall behind it. So if that's the case, and you've got a lot of ads flowing through that, and Google's getting a small little percentage of all the ads that they're allowing to, there's money to be involved there. So I think this is a beneficial partnership at the end of the day for Google. Them serving the ads for Netflix is a reason why they would do it. Otherwise, they really get no benefit out of it. Same thing for NBC in terms of selling the ads and actually getting advertisers to come onto the platform. The question is, how is Netflix going to execute this? Could Netflix build everything in-house? Do they want to outsource everything, learn from it, and then bring it in-house? Netflix has always kind of done stuff in-house. Is advertising on Netflix even going to work? Are people going to sit through the ads? Is it worthwhile? I think you would think there's a lot of demand to watch Stranger Things with ads and not have to pay for it. But is that going to lead to a lot of people unsubscribing and just sitting through the ad at the end? We're going to see ultimately what happens. Netflix kind of forced people to believe that you don't need the ad and it feels better without the ad, which it is. But is it worth $16 a month? That's the question, especially if you don't watch that much of Netflix. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think about Netflix partnering with Google and Comcast potentially to serve up a brand new ad-based saving tier. Looking forward to your thoughts. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.